Wink's Magic Tale, A Little Tale for Big People, written and illustrated by Laurie Campbell. Adapted for audio by Laurie Campbell. I'm Alfred, a grey rat with a skinny tail. I may look plain and dull, but my story is full of magic. Esther is a sorceress and herbalist. I help her make potions and lotions in her big stone house for the animals and birds who live in the Green Valley and the Red Maple Forest. After climbing the shelves in her workshop, I scurry across them on my little legs. Standing on my back legs, I use my front paws to open the tins and pick out bee balm, St. John's wort, chamomile, or sprigs of wild mint. Does wonders for my breath. Esther is making a salve for Greta the goat, who has cut her foot using her butter churn. Esther's curly white head is bent over her mortar and pestle. She's finally grinding the dark green leaves of bee balm. A shadow falls across the floor. Looking up, I see a scrawny red squirrel. She's holding a baby squirrel by the scruff of its neck with her teeth. The baby squirrel squeaks when it hits the floor. The scrawny red squirrel runs out the door. Esther jerks her head up and says, "Alfred, what do we have here?" I say, "Another animal to look after, and you still have to visit Mavis, the merino sheep. She says her back is sore from spending too much time spinning wool. Also, Alice, the alpaca's feet are cracked from using her loom to weave coats for her newborns. You're always vanishing in your green traveling cloak to care for another animal or bird." Esther nods and says, "I know, but there's always time for one more animal." Stooping down, she picks up the squirming squirrel. She says, "I think I'll name you William Isaac Noble King. William was the name of my father. Isaac, Noble, and King were the names of his brothers. You'll be known as Wink." Caring for Wink leaves Esther with little time for looking after the birds and other animals. She forgets to visit Caleb, the border collie, who has a thorn in his paw. He limps to our front door. Esther is too busy with Wink, so I remove the thorn with my sharp teeth. Caleb tells me that the bluebird family cannot sing their songs because they all have colds. Their songs help him to keep the sheep and alpacas calm in the pasture, and he misses them. I give him some of Esther's honey and thyme for their throats. Caleb thanks me, but he's not happy that Esther cannot see him. Wink does not want to eat. Esther is standing over him with a baby bottle full of milk. I have never seen her with such a determined look on her face. Wink looks up at her with an even more determined look. I'm afraid this is not going to end well. Sure enough, he spits out the milk all over her cloak. Yuck! Charlie Crow flies in for a visit. He looks at the tiny, scrawny Wink and cries, "Caw, caw, caw, corn! You should feed him corn. I was raised on it. I can bring you corn cobs from one of the farmer's fields." Esther agrees, for even with her powers, Wink refuses to eat. Wink takes one taste of the sweet corn, and like magic, he begins to eat. This is the start of Wink's obsession with corn. He eats it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. When he's outside playing in the rose garden, we can hear him singing, "Corn, corn, morning, noon, and night. I do love my corn. So glad I was born so I can eat more corn." Wink tells us that at night he dreams of corn niblets swirling around his bed. I tell Esther that Wink's gnawing on his cobs of corn sounds like a buzzsaw. You really need to do something, I say, but Esther does not listen. She's happy that Wink, who once was sickly, is now full of life. The more corn he eats, the bigger Wink grows. He gets so big that his head sticks out of the chimney of the house. "Please, Esther, you really have to do something. He does not fit into the house. He has to leave." There's a look of pain on her face. Slowly she says, "I know, but I love him, and I don't want to lose him." Esther finds Wink in the garden smelling the roses. Through her tears she says, "Wink, you're too big to stay here." Wink sobs as he says, "But how will I feed myself when I'm hungry?" Esther replies, "Do not worry, I'll make sure that you will not leave hungry." That night the moon is full and hangs low in the sky. Esther kneels down and places a bag before the moon. Looking out the window, I hear her say, "O grand moon, fill this bag with seeds, and when they fall onto the ground, may they grow and produce ears of sweet and tender corn." Slowly the bag fills with seeds until it is so full the seeds spill out over its top. With a huge smile on her face, Esther thanks the moon for this bountiful gift. Esther gives Wink the bag of seeds. She says, Wink, if you're hungry, drop some seeds on the ground. The corn will grow as soon as the seeds touch the soil. You'll have enough seed until the next full moon. Then you must find the moon and ask for more seeds. Wink says, is that all I have to do? You mean I'll never be without corn? Yes, that's all. But don't forget to say please and thank you to the moon. That is how you show gratitude for this gift. Wink gets one final hug from Esther and then walks down the garden path. It does not take long before Wink's planting of corn causes chaos. Charlie Crow tells us that Ralph the raccoon has been frightened by a furry monster. Trying to escape, he crammed his head in a bird feeder. Esther comes to Ralph's aid and tells him that the large animal's Wink. He cannot believe that Wink could have grown so tall. The next day, Charlie Crow tells us that he saw Greta the goat leaning out of her window and yelling at Wink to stop planting his corn seed. She tells him the corn stalks are choking out the clover that flavors her butter. She cannot sell butter that tastes like corn stalks. On the third day, our black-winged messenger tells us that Regal the stag has told Wink to stay away from his son, Sean. Mother Bear does not want Wink to come near her cubs. Neither parent wants their youngsters to pick up Wink's habit of eating corn. The thought of their children running through a cornfield and being chased by a dog or shot by a farmer gives them the shivers. Wink tells them, don't worry, I'll not share my corn with anyone. This corn is all mine. Esther is very upset that Wink is not being accepted by her community. She says to me, Alfred, there has to be someone who can help. I will go and speak to Mavis and Alice. They have young ones, and they know what it means to be a mother. When Esther finds Mavis, she hugs her, burying her face in Mavis's soft white woolly fleece. Esther raises her head, looks into Alice's dark eyes, and asks, can you help me? Alice says, I would like to help you. Our community not wanting Wink around must be so hard after you have been so good to us. Mavis nods in agreement. Alice says, but we don't know what to do. Maybe the answer is staring you in the face. Esther says, oh, if only the answer were that close. She looks down sadly and sees a spread of dark green leaves with pale brown pods covering the ground. Alice, look! This is wild chickpea. I can make a soup with its peas. I will cook them with butternut squash. I'll add some corn syrup for flavoring. I can make the soup taste like corn soup. Mavis looks at her with her bright black eyes. That's a wonderful idea, she says. Esther adds, if Wink likes a soup, he will not have to plant more corn. I must go home now. There's not a moment to lose. Esther finds me at home in the rose garden. She tells me of her plan, but then the glow of happiness leaves her face. She slumps to the ground. I ask her, what is the matter? She says, tonight there'll be a full moon. Wink will be refilling his bag, and I don't know where to find him. With a sigh, she says, if only I had listened to you. You warned me about Wink eating too much corn, but I was too deaf to listen. Placing a tiny paw on her cheek, I say, do not blame yourself, Esther. What you did was done out of love. I tell her Charlie Crow should be here. He's the one who first suggested feeding Wink corn. I'm angry at him, but I also need him to help me find Wink. But where is Charlie? Charlie Crow is looking for the black bears, Bruno and Bert, and the white wolves. He thinks they can provide the muscle power to get rid of Wink. With Wink gone, life will return to normal, and Esther will spend her days with her community. He finds the bears and the wolves gathered in front of an abandoned cottage. The sun is low in the sky, and the shadows are creeping over the hills. Charlie Crow can hear the animals spinning yarns about hunting. Bruno and Bert are telling the white wolves Axel and Argo how they caught 10 rainbow trout in 10 minutes. Charlie Crow caws, "With your speed and strength, you should have no problem scaring Wink into leaving." Axel the white wolf, sitting on top of a high rocky ledge, asks,
"Why would we want to do that? Wolves don't eat corn, and no wolf would be interested in chasing a squirrel."
Charlie Crow says, "Just think, you and Argo would be the white knights rescuing the birds and animals from Wink. Those bluebirds will sing your praises to the sky." Argo, the larger of the two wolves, lifts his head and says,
"I like the sound of us being heroes."
Charlie Crow says, "I'm so glad you agree. So when will you start your search for Wink?" Argo replies,
"We can start now. Tonight there will be a full moon. That will make it easy for us to find him. Let's go and begin the hunt."
And off they go. Charlie Crow thinks he is very clever at getting the wolves and the bears to scare Wink. But high upon a beech tree, Honor the great horned owl, Blessed the barred owl, and Bounty the barn owl have been listening. Honor hoots, "Who do you think you are, Charlie Crow? You have brought dishonor to the birds with your trickery." Charlie Crow says, "Don't be so dramatic. They're just going to scare him. And my actions are for the good of my community." Honor, flapping his wings, replies, "You have placed Wink's life in danger. I have seen those wolves with their sharp teeth." Blessed, staring into Charlie Crow's beady little eye, says, "I can see into your heart, and it is full of deceit." Bounty has been sitting still, not saying a word. He is the most unsettling of the owls because his face does not show any emotion. In a very low tone, he says, "You shall tell Esther what you have done and ask her to forgive you. Then you must find Wink and hope it's not too late." Charlie Crow says, "Why should I?" Bounty looks at his Irish wolfhound, Destiny. Without blinking, he stares at Charlie Crow. "You will do as I say, because Destiny will be keeping an eye on you. You will not see him, for he knows how to hide in the shadows. Now go home." Charlie Crow, beating his wings as fast as he can, flies away to Esther's house. He confesses what he has done. Esther is speechless when she hears his confession. I am not. Letting out a loud squeal, I say, "What have you done? How could you betray Esther, who has been so good to you?" Charlie Crow shakes his head, protesting, "I did it because I want everything to go back to the way it was before Wink came here." Esther says, "Charlie Crow, the seasons come and go, but they are not the same as before. There are new flowers and leaves on the trees. We are part of nature, and as nature changes, so do we. Life can never stay the same." Charlie Crow's head hangs low. Then he looks up and says, "If things can change, well, then so can I. To prove it, I'll find Wink and bring him back to you." I stare at him and say, "How will you bring him home? Your plans so far have caused nothing but trouble. I shall go with you." I climb onto Charlie Crow's back, and we fly off into the twilight. The sky is deep blue, with shades of violet. A haze of clouds passes over the moon. Charlie Crow, with his keen eyesight, sees what looks like a large furry animal with striped, bronze-colored fur. He swoops down for a closer view. This animal's ears are pointed like Wink's, but they are not as furry. This animal is an enormous cat. The cat says,
"I am Heathcliff, guarding the forest path. This is the land of giant animals. What are you doing here?"
Charlie Crow says, "We are searching for Wink, a giant red squirrel." Heathcliff has a dismissive air about him and does not look up at us. He replies, as if he's speaking to himself,
"Oh, the big rodent with the red stripe down his back carrying a sack. You can find him down by the stream. He said something about needing to find the moon."
We find Wink at the stream. He is kneeling and opening his sack. The clouds have lifted, and the moon is a huge yellow ball, casting a perfect reflection on the still water of the stream. I can see Wink's bag glimmering with corn seed. The moon's reflection gives me an idea. I whisper to Charlie Crow and get him closer to the water. When he's bending over, I'll cut open his bag. Charlie Crow hides in a tall pine tree. Disguising his voice, he says, "Good evening, Wink. Would you like to touch my face?" "Yes, Boo," Wink replies. "But you're so far away. How can I do this?" "I'm not far away. Look down and see how close I am. Stretch out your paws, and you'll be able to touch me." Wink bends over to touch the moon's reflection. I gnaw a hole in the bottom of his bag with my sharp teeth. The seeds pour out of the bag and into the water. Wink cries, "My precious corn seeds! They're all gone! What am I going to do?" Then the strangest thing happens. As the corn seed drains from the bag, Wink becomes smaller and smaller. He shrinks to the size he was before he began to eat the corn. Charlie Crow and I stare at him in disbelief. After shaking our heads, we return to Esther's house with Wink to give her the news. Esther is also surprised when she sees Wink. She's so grateful that her little squirrel has come back to her. She spends night and day feeding him her chickpea soup to help him get used to living without the magic corn. In time, Wink gets better. He now helps Esther make her medicines. He's a quick learner. I like to sit on the window ledge and watch, waiting for Wink's instructions on which herbs I should get from the tins. The animals and birds are sorry that they did not support Esther when she needed their help, but she has forgiven them. They are slowly accepting that life cannot stay the same forever. Wink is staying in the community and is a part of Esther's life. It is amazing how one small animal could bring so much change to our lives.